Chapter 5 Block-Based Coding Learning Objectives. This chapter introduces to the world of gaming app in Thunkable using block-based coding. The students learn how to create gaming app. Block-based coding means that instead of typing a coding language, you drag and drop jigsaw-like pieces together to build things using tools like Scratch or Thunkable. How does block-based coding work? Block-based coding works by dragging together blocks of code to make programs that can do things. There will be a range of different kinds of blocks that can be used, and often these have hints, as with a jigsaw, on which will fit together. Given is an example of some code from Thunkable, a tool that allows you to make simple apps. The different colors of the blocks show their different functions. The yellow block is an event, looking for when a button is clicked, and then the purple block connected to it is a sound block and will play a sound when told by the yellow block. Features of block-based coding. Whether you use Scratch, Thunkable, or another block-based coding tool, they tend to have similar features, mostly based around coding concepts that you will find in typed coding languages as well. They all tend to revolve around two elements: creating the visual interface that the user will interact with and putting together the blocks that make up the code. Thunkable. Thunkable is a block-based coding tool for creating simple interactive apps such as little games. It can also be used to add features like text-to-speech and image recognition, as it has blocks with specific features. It is good for prototyping ideas and thinking about what you might need to make an app work without having to learn one of the coding languages used to develop apps. It's also useful for thinking about how you make an app functional for your users, as you can live test your app within your web browser to try out the features you give it. Key features of Thunkable. Thunkable has two sections: design and blocks. Design is where you create this user interface for your app, what the user sees and interact with. Drag components like buttons, labels, and text entry fields onto the screens and customize the attributes of these so they look how you want. Blocks are where you create the code that tells your app how to function. Drag and drop blocks together to form code sets of instructions for the computer. When you are working in design, you will add components to screens, which are the different screens users will see in the app, a bit like different web pages. You will also need to add navigation components, either through the built-in navigator options or by coding buttons so they will go to another screen. When you are working in blocks, there are different categories of blocks that can be put together. The shapes and colors suggestion what kind of block they are and which other blocks they might be able to connect to. UI components blocks are ones that control the components you added in the design section. For example, you might find blocks that allow you to tell the computer what to do when a button is pressed or to get the text entered in a text entry field. Control blocks allow you to control what the code does using common coding commands like repeating actions and making if decisions. Variable blocks are how you can create values that are stored in the computer's memory and referred by their name. These can be any value you need to use again in your code, like a score or what a user entered. Groups of blocks like math, text, lists, and color blocks are how you can work with different kind of values, like doing calculations, manipulating text and lists of values, and changing colors. App features blocks allow you to access more advanced features for your app to use, like generating or recognizing speech or accessing the device camera.
Thunkable exercises. You all need to be using Thunkable for these exercises. You can sign up for a free account.
This guide will include what design features and blocks you will need to use to build your own app for text-to-text speech and a language translator. You will need to first build the components on the Design tab to design what you want your app to look like. You can give your components suitable names so you can find them when adding your coding blocks. Then on the Blocks tab, you can drag and drop the blocks needed to build a function. Blocks related to the components you added are listed from the left hand side under the name of each component, which is why it is sometimes useful to give them a helpful name. Symbol text to speech. When the button is clicked, the text to speech component will convert any text written in the text entry box into speech and read it aloud. Features to add on the Design tab. Label for a title, text box, button labeled speak. Blocks to add. First, when. Add a block for this event to happen when that particular button is clicked. A. Say. Use the speech component so that it speaks the text aloud. B. User text inputs text in. Add in a block to get what was entered into the text box and use that as the text which needs to be spoken. Simple translator. When the translate button is clicked, this will translate the text entered into text input first into a single target language. This language is chosen in the design mode for the translator properties. Then this code will change the label text at the top of the screen to show the output. Features to add on the Design tab. Text box, button labeled translate. Label to show translated text. Set as enter text below. Blocks to add. What each block does. First, when. When the translate button is pressed, run the translation tool. Set the text in a label as a translation of the text from the text box. A. From translated text label, set text to. This block will set the text in the label to whatever value is added on the end. B. Translation of. Add this block at the end to use the translation tool to translate the selected languages so it knows what to set the text to. C. From text entry, get text. This needs to be added to get the source text from the text entry box and use that text to translate. Add an if statement. First, add an if or else statement to first check that the text entry box is not empty, null. If that condition is met, then run the translator blocks we have already created. 2. In the else, it will change the text display label to tell that user that they must first enter some text.